What's up, people? Welcome to the Black and White podcast. Today we're discussing the idea of beginning with the end in mind. Listen to this. From a young age, I understood this principle of beginning with the end in mind. In fact, it comes from a successful book called The Success Principles by a guy called Stephen Covey. Maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't. Anyway, in this book, he discusses 7 principles that can fundamentally change your life, and to be honest, had a massive impact on mine. But one of these principles is this idea of beginning with the end in mind. And the idea is simple. The idea is that if you begin any project, any idea, any vision, any plan with a clear definition of where you want to end up, that increases your likelihood of success. And for a long time, I accepted this idea without any conversation, without much pushback, because it seemed quite simple, it seemed quite logical. In fact, many texts, including the Bible, gives ideas and stories and even scripture on why this idea is smart and wise. In fact, there's a story that's told of a man who started to build a house, and along the way, he ran out of money because he didn't calculate how much that project would cost. And now his house stands there with the foundations laid, but with nothing else there. And when people pass this project now, it's a reminder of the importance to begin with the end in mind. So this idea is not just from Stephen Covey. This is an idea as old as Methuselah, as old as Queen Elizabeth, right? An old idea. So here's the thing. Largely, I've accepted it. Largely, I didn't challenge it. It seems simple. It seems logical until you actually start to do things, until you actually start to try to actually achieve those projects, those ideas, and those visions. You see, what I've come to realize from my experience is that the end goal can and does become a moving target. And often when you begin with the end in mind, because you are limited in experience and also limited in knowledge, you actually don't know what that end should be. And the reality is, the picture that you have of the end, what the destination is, usually you have no idea of what it's going to take to get you there. Now, of course, you can listen to podcasts, you can read books, you can talk to people who have achieved what you think it is you want to achieve, and they can tell you how they did it. They can give you some tips and some input, but the reality is you have no idea of what it's going to take to get there until you actually try and do it yourself. And actually, to push it even further, I think many of us, if we had a true sense of what it would take to achieve some of the things that we want to achieve, it would probably be too daunting in the first place. It would probably be too big to keep us inspired, because it could feel like it's such a long way out. And so I think this idea of just pushing forward when you have this vision is problematic. Let's go a step further. As you begin to take steps towards achieving that goal, maybe you realize that that's not the goal that you wanted. Like, we've all heard stories of people who have thought they wanted to exit their company, or thought they wanted to have kids or get married, or thought they wanted to pursue a career in art, or whatever the goal was. And when they get to that point, they're like, is this it? And many people are talking about this dilemma that many founders and many people find when they get the goal that they're actually achieving or set out for. They then realize that maybe it wasn't a worthwhile goal. We've heard stories and ideas of, like, climbing a ladder and then realize the ladder was up against the wrong wall. This is all part of the idea of when you begin with the end in mind, in the traditional and typical sense, it can lead to disappointment. Disappointment when you get there because it doesn't live up to the hype. And so for me, I think we need to propose a slightly different way of looking at things. I think there needs to be a different perspective that's put on this. And I believe that it's not about beginning with the end in mind. It's more about beginning with the intention to enjoy the process. Beginning with the intention of enjoying the process. I think this is a much, much healthier and more productive way of thinking of things. because the process might necessitate that the goal changes. As you take steps towards what you thought was the end might get pushed, the end might get changed or drastically modified. Maybe you want to change path. Maybe you just decide this is just not what you wanted. And to avoid that feeling of disappointment or discontentment or just a lack of joy or a loss of joy, I think when you decide that the process is what you're going to focus on, that in itself brings more fulfillment. It can bring you to a point of regular check-ins with yourself every day, every week, every month. Am I still enjoying this process? Is the goal, what I'm reaching for, still worthwhile? Do I need to change it? Furthermore, that idea when we reach what we thought was the end and then we have to sit down and re-envision everything again, that's avoided, because the end, we understand that what we think is the end is probably just the next step along the journey. And now we can put another goal in place for us to reach next without that feeling of, oh, I'm just on to the next thing, on to the next, on to the next thing. No, it's more a feeling of, I'm here for the journey. I'm here for the process, rather than this nirvana of an end goal that we think is the goal that then we become disillusioned by, even when we hit it. And this is the trap of setting these goals. They're not only disillusional, or you don't only get filled with disillusion when you hit it or when you don't hit it. You also are filled with disillusionment when you hit it. Can you imagine all the effort, all the sacrifices, all the late nights, all the loss of sleep that you have endured while you've attempted to achieve these big goals, this end in mind, only to get there and then be disillusioned anyway? It's not worth it. And so that's why for me, I think that I never thought I'd challenge Stephen Covey, but here it is. I challenge you, mate. I know he's no longer with us, but I challenge the Covey estate to change that principle, that success principle that has stood the test of time. I'm challenging it. I'm saying, far from beginning with the end in mind, I think you should begin with the process in mind. Begin with the process in mind and begin with a commitment to enjoy the journey or endure the journey, but to take steps forward throughout the entire journey. Take off the pressure of this end goal and rather put the energy and the emphasis on who we are becoming, what we are learning, and who we are helping even as we go along the path. That was episode 2 of the Black and White podcast, because everything is not black and white, it's black and white.